Everybody has a story. You got a story, your life today. You're writing a story, and it matters immensely. It matters to God. It matters to you. Nobody gets the story they want. My question for you today is, what story are you telling yourself? Because we're all telling ourselves a story, and that deeply shapes the way in which we live. And we all face challenges around that. If you go on to TikTok, you will find 10,000 videos that will describe a condition called high-functioning anxiety. Millions of people have viewed this. Lots of experts, lots of practitioners have offered thoughts about it. Here's the problem. Lucy Folks, who's at Oxford University, Dr. Folks writes, it's actually not a clinical diagnosis. It's not in the DSM. It's a hashtag. It's a made-up kind of thing. And yet all kinds of people are self-diagnosing with it. And here's her concern about this. She says there's kind of 3 stages that keep this from being helpful to us. The first one is a high level of awareness. And it's good that we're aware of mental health issues and emotional health problems, that it's been increasingly destigmatized in our day, that people can receive treatment, help, medical therapy. That's a really good thing. But even though it's very well intended, it can lead to a second problem, and she calls that overinterpretation. If you click on one of these videos, I'm not recommending it. It's not a thing. But if you do, people will say, do you have problems like, are you kind of a perfectionist? Or do you sometimes have problems controlling your thoughts? Or do you sometimes have fears that are not helpful? Well, duh, yes. But what happens then is we will give ourselves a particular diagnosis or a particular name for a emotional health condition. I'm not mentally healthy. And then that leads to what she calls self-fulfilling prophecy. They actually call it nocebo. It's kind of the opposite of a placebo. I remember I was in college, a psych major, when I first ran across that word placebo. I had only read it. I didn't know how to pronounce it. So I said to my friend Chuck, hey, there's this thing called the placebo. Have you heard about that? He was going to become a doctor. So, of course, he had. And he felt it was very funny that I called it a placebo. Placebo is when you're taking something that's not actually physically effective, but because of the way the mind and the brain works, it actually does make a change in your body and your well-being. And nocebo is like the opposite of that. It's where you don't actually have a real problem, but because you think you do, it actually becomes a real problem. And part of what's happening in our day, because we have largely lost the language to talk about the human condition, particularly spiritual and moral language, in robust, psychologically realistic ways, is that increasingly we're coming to have only 2 categories to talk about our lives. Either I'm experiencing bliss, positive psychology, stuff that's great, or if I'm not experiencing that, then I must have an emotional illness, because we have kind of a poverty of language for discussing the human condition in other ways. So let me give you a second chart that could help you to categorize what you're experiencing. There is bliss. There are moments of ecstasy, joy, flourishing, well-being. There is also such a thing as emotional illness and suffering from anxiety and depression, and those as clinical issues are increasing in our day. But in between, there's just life. And it's problems. To a very large extent, life presents itself to us as a series of problems. I was coming out here to tape this, and the toilet overflowed. And I did it to myself. I knew that was a danger. I'd been plunging. The water was too high. Oh, man, that's so frustrating. It's not actually an emotional illness problem. It's just life. We've talked in this series about, as we're looking at story, what happens is you have a protagonist, that's you, the central character. There's an object of desire. For all human beings, it certainly involves happiness, joy, at deeper levels, meaning, a connection to God, transcendent purpose, forgiveness, cleansing. But all along the way, we have these problems. This is the nature of story. There is no story without problems. Intrapersonal problems within myself. I worry, I fear, I'm afraid. I lie, I grieve, I steal, I get angry. and interpersonal problems with other people and intrapersonal problems. We are up against spiritual powers that are beyond us. And so we were invited to another way of life. And I want to tell you, in the moments that remain, there was a remarkable human being, thinker in the 20th century by the name of Thomas Kelly. Thomas Kelly was very, very bright, born into a Quaker family, decided when he was in college, I will make my life a miracle. And he about killed himself trying to do that. He was a classic overachiever. When he was getting his second PhD, this from Harvard University, and by the way, if you find yourself getting your second PhD from Harvard, you might be an overachiever. He had published his dissertation, but when he was taking his final orals, defending his dissertation, he suffered from a memory lapse and failed. And this triggered a kind of a breakdown in him, which sometimes becomes kind of a breakthrough. It's life. And he found God in a deep and remarkable way, found another way of doing life. And he began to write about this because it helped him think and experience it. And on January 17th, I think it was 1941, Harper, the publishers, agreed to meet with him to talk about publishing in that book. On that same day, he died of a heart attack. And he was only in his 40s. And a friend of his, Douglas Steer, agreed to have the book written posthumously. It's called A Testament of Devotion. And it's an absolute classic about spiritual life. And part of where Thomas Kelly helps us is to say there is a way of life, and it's not just about either I'm having bliss or I'm emotionally ill. He says we are invited to live in the divine center. I'll say more about that in just a moment. But then as I walk through my day, sometimes there will be joy, sometimes there'll be life and problems, sometimes I will face illness, including maybe emotional illness, but always I'm invited now to live in a different kind of way, from a different place within, from a spiritual reality, from an experience of the kingdom of God, God's presence and guidance and power, His thoughts. He's here right now in this beautiful place. If you're just listening, I'm sitting in a chair in a beautiful spot right now. And God is present, but He's present in ugly, difficult, dark places, in the garden and on the cross. Here's what Kelly writes. Deep within us there is a holy place, an inner sanctuary of the soul, a divine center. You might know in the Old Testament there was the temple. That was a picture of God dwelling on earth. That's mainly a picture of God dwelling within us. And at the core of it is the Holy of Holies. And that's a picture of what lies at the center of your soul, the Holy of Holies, the place where God is. Here is the slumbering Christ. Such wonderful language. Here is the slumbering Christ, stirring to be awakened. And like the needle, he writes, the inward light becomes the truest guide of life. The inward light is another word for that divine center, showing us new and unsuspected defects in ourselves and our fellows. Good news there. There are defects, but what a good thing when I'm able to see it and know that God still loves me and God wants to help me change. There is a way, he goes on, of ordering our mental life on more than one level at once. On one level, we may be thinking, discussing, seeing, calculating, meeting all the demands of external affairs. But deep within, behind the scenes, at a profounder level, we may also be in prayer and adoration, song and worship, and a gentle receptiveness to divine breathings. So, here's the invitation. Begin now. As you hear these words, as you sit in your chair, whatever you're doing right now, to offer your whole self utterly and in joyful abandon, in quiet, glad surrender to Him who is within. in secret words of praise. Turn in humble wonder to the light, faint though it may be. Keep contact with the outer world of sense and meanings. Here is no discipline in absent-mindedness. So being fully present to God within actually enables me to be most fully present to the world and other people without. Walk and talk and work and laugh with your friends. But behind the scenes, keep up the life of simple prayer in inward worship. Let inward prayer be your last act before you fall asleep, and the first act when you awake. Now this is high functioning, not high functioning anxiety, but high functioning life in the Spirit. So right now, select a phrase that you can take with you all day long that helps you to return to the divine center, to the inner light, to the slumbering Christ within. Maybe your will be done, or maybe dearest friend, or maybe peace be still, or maybe my shepherd. Whatever that is, pick a phrase that has beauty to you, that through which God speaks to you, and let that be the heartbeat of your day. See how many times today, as you're driving, as you're at work, when you are plunging the overflowing toilet, whatever it is that you are doing, that enables you to come back to the Holy of Holies. Whatever's going on in your outer life, whatever's going on in your body, whatever is going on in your emotions, I promise there is a divine center and you can find him there. This is my story.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future teachings from John Ortberg here at Become New. My name's Tim, and I'm a part of the team here. This series is all about stories. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story matters. And we want to know about your story, whether it's a story of coming to faith or a story of spiritual growth. Whatever it is, we're here for you. You can email that to us at connect@becomenew.com, or you can text it to us. You can also sign up for daily reminders whenever we drop a new video via text by texting the word BECOME to the number 855-888-0444. You can also send us prayer requests there. There's a team of us that meet to pray each weekday for viewers just like yourself. If you'd like to receive the emails that go along with each video, be sure to check that out at becomenew.com/subscribe. More than a video to watch, this is really a community to belong to, and we're so glad that you're a part of it. We'll catch you next time.